Brahma Chaloka Dipati Sahampati Katanjali Anadi Varanaya Chata Santida Sataparaja Kajatika Dese Tu Dhammam and Kampimam Jamu.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So welcome again, everybody. This wet, drizzly evening, quite dark out there. Been raining for 2 days, almost solidly, here in Canmore. For those who are elsewhere, it's lovely. It's a sort of weather where I feel it's okay just to sit around, not do too much. Nothing much to do outdoors. Actually, we had a very refreshing walk earlier on. We met Ryan. It was really nice. First of all, I want to talk about the chant that Sanghamitta just did for us, and which she beautifully does every week, every time I give a talk. And somebody was asking about this chanting, and it's a custom in the Buddhist tradition, partly because the monks and nuns have got a lot of rules about when you can speak on Dharma, which is not very often, really, because we have to have a kind of an invitation of some sort. We have to feel that people actually want to listen. And also we have to be sure that people are in the right frame of mind to hear the Dharma. So there's all sorts of rules about not teaching people in certain positions, postures, with a hat on, with an umbrella, with shoes on, all sorts of rules, which we don't necessarily follow nowadays, just because that wouldn't always be supportive. But on the whole, as you can see, you'll come in and are very respectfully listening, and that's very suitable for a Dharma talk, so that we really appreciate the teachings of the Buddha together. And so the invitation that Sanghamitta is making, it really enables me to give a talk. I've actually been formally invited to give a talk. I don't always need a formal invitation, but it's very lovely to have that. And so what she's chanting each time is, of course, in the Pali language, the scriptural language of the early Buddhist texts. It's actually a quote from the Pali Canon, from the words of the Buddha. He would often describe for people his journey as a bodhisattva, as a young man, his spiritual search, and wonderful to take in these stories from the Buddha, the mistakes he made, the difficulties he had, and the way he eventually found his path to complete liberation, without anybody really helping him, because the teachers in his day only could give him so much. in the way of practices and teachings, but he again and again felt, this isn't it. This is disappointing. This is not taking me out of suffering. And so in the end, he discovered for himself the way to practice, and then spent the rest of his life teaching us. But when he actually became the Buddha and he became liberated, I mean, after countless lifetimes of struggle and endeavor, developing virtue over many lifetimes, with the aim in his heart, in his mind, that he was doing all of this, striving and struggling in this way, so that he could develop enough virtue to become a world teacher, to become someone who could teach anybody the Dharma, to become a Buddha, to become someone who is self-taught, who finds the path on their own without the aid of a teacher. A very, very rare thing in the world, a very, very rare event. And so having gone through all of that, having striven and suffered so much, made so many sacrifices, he actually, when he became the Buddha, he had a sort of change of heart. He's sitting there, he's realized the way out of suffering. He's free from any kind of source of disquiet. He has a heart that's completely unshakable. And it occurred to him that this is quite a subtle teaching, quite a subtle path. It's quite difficult to understand fully how to free our hearts from suffering. And as it occurred to him, the extraordinary nature of what he discovered, he had the thought, well, probably people won't understand the teaching, the Dharma, that I've discovered for myself. Why don't I just abide in peace and tranquility and be like, there's a kind of Buddha that's called a Pacheco Buddha, which is a silent Buddha, a Buddha who does not teach, somebody who, like the Buddha we know, the Buddha of this age, becomes fully enlightened on their own without any help from anyone else, but they choose not to teach. They just remain silent. They're just spreading their radiance around the world, but they're not actually going out and transmitting the Dharma to others. So he had this thought, why don't I just abide peacefully? At which point, the god, one of the gods, Sahampati is his name, up in the Brahmaloka, like many other beings probably at the time that the Buddha became enlightened, there was a great understanding of this event, a kind of radiance, a kind of energy that spread through all the different planes of existence. And there was a lot of kind of rejoicing and celebrating and acknowledgement of this amazing event. And one of the gods understood that the Buddha was having these thoughts. And he immediately, in the text, we're told it's in the space of time it takes a strong person to extend their flexed arm or flex their extended arm. In this short space of time, the god Sahampati came to the Buddha and manifested before him and bowed to him, and very respectfully with his hands like this. And this is what Sanghamitta's chanting. She's telling us the story. The god Sahampati came down from the heavens and he respectfully requested the Buddha, please, don't follow that line of thinking. Please consider that there are some people in the world who have but little dust in their eyes. They will understand you if you teach the Dhamma. Please do so. And then the god Sahampati left. And this is the chant. This is what Sanghamitta's chanting in Pali, telling us this story. And so in the same way, you know, for all of us, if we have any understanding of the Buddha's teachings, and if we've been able to put that understanding into practice and we've gained any kind of benefit, then it's really lovely if we can offer, share what we can with others, when just like for the monks and nuns, when there's a suitable opportunity, you know, when there's a feeling that this would be helpful and welcome, and it wouldn't cause aversion or people to, you know, want to get away from us. And to be honest, when I started meditating, I found it such a revelation. I think I've mentioned before, just to start to feel my body at all, just to start to be aware of all the different things going on in the mind and body, was such a revelation for me. I was going out like a kind of Jehovah's Witness, with all respect, or like a evangelical, you know, like, come on, everyone, you know. And I'm not the most sort of shy, retiring time. And so I was really going out there, you know, like I was a student at university, and I'm getting all my friends and telling them all about the meditation and my whole family. And people were like, oh dear. And I realized that doesn't work. It doesn't work to do that. One has to be very, not so much coming from our own experience as looking at, you know, what's the situation for the other person? Where are they coming from? Which is precisely what happened for the Buddha when he started teaching the first person he met on the road. He just told him, you know, look, you know, I've discovered this path. I have no teacher, you know, I am the teacher, listen up. And the person was not actually able to engage with that. And they turned away and just went off in the other direction. Very interesting. The Buddha himself is there teaching, and it didn't attract this person, who later, fortunately, became a bhikkhu and became fully liberated, actually, later on. So the Buddha changed his way of teaching, and it was something like this movement towards the other, of noticing that, well, what's the difference between a Buddha and everybody else? The difference is that everybody else is suffering. One way or another, you know, we're suffering. And it's to address that. In what way are you suffering? How are you confused? How are we struggling? Let's see if we can go to that place, recognize what's happening for us, and move on from that place, you know, work from there. And then the rest of the Buddha's ministry, 45 years of teaching tirelessly all over northern India, what's now northern India. He spent his time talking about suffering, talking about the problem, the dis-ease, and then giving the cause of the dis-ease and the cure and the way to come to that place of health, the prescription, which is the Eightfold Path. And of course, the disease is suffering. Suffering's optional. Suffering's not a given. Even though, you know, we get old and we get sick if we're normal. I mean, most people at some point get sick, and we're all going to die. That is not necessarily a source of suffering for us. It doesn't have to be a source of suffering. So what's the source of suffering? The second noble truth, he said, it's desire. Desire is the source of all our suffering. Wow. I read a sutta today. Coincidentally, I'm working my way through Samyutta Nikaya, chapter 22. It's all about the aggregates. So I'll be harping on, going on about the aggregates probably for quite some time, because it's quite a big chapter, unless I read it really quickly. The 5 aggregates, looking at our experience through this particular lens. And in this sutta, the Buddha was actually talking about what is the cause of anxiety for us? What is the cause of anxiety? And I looked up this word, the word for anxiety in Pali. Really interesting. It's 2 words put together, pari and tassati. Pari-tassati, translated as anxiety. Tassati is to be fearful or anxious or excited. I thought that was very interesting. So could we consider the feeling of anxiety? How does it manifest for us in the body, which is where it will start? things always start in the body. And what kind of a feeling in the body will come up for us and give us a sense of anxiety? I'm anxious. Maybe a shake or a quake. The other meaning of the word tassity is to tremble, to tremble. So trembling, shaking, quaking in the body. We could either perceive in a fearful light and call anxiety, or we could perceive it in a positive light and call it excitement or energy, you know. So that's what it is. This word means all those things together. It doesn't distinguish between what we might say is a positive take or a negative take. It just is. This word tassity just means to quake, to shake, to tremble. Anxiety, excitement, fear is another meaning. This is why I find it really amazing to look at the Pali. Go back to the text, go back to the original language, because there's so much. It gives you so many different ways of understanding the teachings. The word pari, so the word in these texts for anxiety is paritasati. The word pari means complete, or all-encompassing, all around. So paritasati, anxiety, excitement, fear, is a sense of all over shaking all over, trembling all over. So this is what the sutta I was reading is about. This quality. Why do we experience this quality? Why do we have this shake, this tremble, this agitation, excitement, anxiety, fear? And the Buddha said there's just one reason why we have this. One reason why we suffer. And it's the second noble truth of desire. He said it's when we have attachment to or wishes around the five khandhas. The body, when we want the body to be a certain way, when we want feelings to be a certain way, when we have cravings towards perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness itself, these five ways we can experience life. And the Buddha said in this sutta that if we have a sense of shaking or quaking around these five khandhas, these five heaps, these five ways in which we experience the world, then we can investigate that energy of anxiety or excitement or fear, feel it, and recognize that within that there is an identification with those khandhas. So we're making them mine, we're making them me, we're having a sense of kind of grasping and holding on to them. And this is the source of all our suffering. And he went on in this sutta to give the other side, the alternative way of being, the practice, which is, he said, if we feel that shake in relation to the five khandhas, we can observe it. Just be willing to pay attention to what's happening in the body, in the mind, in the heart. Because anxiety, excitement, it manifests on all these different levels, doesn't it? It's in the body. There can be a tightening, tension, a quivering or shaking, a cold feeling, sometimes a cold feeling, or sometimes a very high vibration, excitement. It's like, it's like drinking too much coffee or something. It can be we can feel very wired, charged, supercharged. All these feelings in the body relate to excitement, anxiety, but also in the heart, the emotion of unsettledness, of reaching for something, or pushing something away, we're not here. We're moving towards something. We're on the move. We're not present. We're looking to the future, or we're in the past. And in the mind, all the thoughts that we can have, the very strong sense of needing to do something, because these energies are so compelling for us. All of that, so we can experience on every level, in every way, this quality. And the Buddha said, we just need to be aware, be present, be steady, sit steady, stand steady, walk, lie down, with attention to the experience that we're having. And then we're separating out the sense of self, the sense of this ownership, the sense of this belonging to me, the sense that I'm somehow involved in this, can fall away, and we can experience freedom. So in observing, in letting go of the sense of self, which happens naturally when we pay attention, then we can free up, and we're simply observing Dhamma. We're seeing Dhamma, we're seeing truth. This is the truth of this moment. And when we're able to do that, it's like we make the space, like I was saying in the guided meditation. We're allowing space. We're allowing the tremble, the shake, the electric excitement, the fear, however we frame this energy of paritasati, quivering, quaking. We're able to stop framing it. Actually, we don't have to call it anything in particular. We just have to be aware of what's going on. And then we can observe with this sense of spaciousness around it, the sense of wise attention, kind attention. We can see how these experiences are always, always arising, lasting for some time, and then passing away. And we can sit through, just hold on, hold tight, and just sit through these energies as they come and go, come and go, come and go. And when we're in the midst of such experiences, the best thing we can do for ourselves is what the Buddha is telling us in this teaching that I was reading, is to do nothing, is just to be aware, just to stay steady. And then we can observe. We're observing the body, we're also observing the mind. And we're observing peace slowly manifesting as the agitation can find its ground. I find it really significant that when the Buddha became the Buddha, the moment he became enlightened, he touched the ground with his bare hand. He touched the earth. And for me, this is such a beautiful teaching in and of itself. It's a wordless teaching, isn't it? Why would he do that? We can consider that. There's all sorts of mythology that's come about around this, speaking about the earth goddess, the Mother Earth, and how he was expressing gratitude because we are part of the earth. We're not separate from the earth. Whatever we want to consider, it's worth contemplating this, touching the earth. And it's surely very good for us to touch the earth, to ground ourselves, bare feet, bare hands, bare bodies on the ground. St. Francis of Assisi, one of my great heroes, when he passed away, he was a great saint. He was very close in his practice to Jesus. Jesus was his guiding light, and he modeled his entire life around Jesus's life. And he lived such a good and pure life, very, very inspiring person. When he was dying, he asked to be taken outside, and he asked for his body to be put on the ground. And the Buddha, when he passed away, also, he was lying on the earth under a tree at his head and a tree at his feet. I think these things are very significant. Nature, we're very lucky here in Canmore. We have such beautiful nature all around us. And it really helps us to be out in nature, to be grounding, because these bodies are nothing but nature. And not just these bodies, of course, but these minds, this consciousness. And so to return to nature, to let go of this sense of me and mine, you know, to let go of the identification and the holding to this tiny little thing, you know, this very impermanent, very vulnerable, very shaky, mortal experience, is to really limit ourselves. You know, it's really like narrowing the mind, narrowing it all down and putting ourselves in a very tiny little corner. We don't want to do that. And so this sutta, like so many of the teachings of the Buddha, is really encouraging us to let go of the holding to the experience that we're having, whether it's anxiety, fear, excitement, or anything else, anything at all. That the holding to experience and identifying with experience is always painful for us. And the freedom comes from the ability to simply be present with and allow nature to manifest, allow nature to follow its nature, allow nature to flow, allow the right things to happen, you know. To allow the right things to happen is to get out of the way. And I think the really interesting thing for me is how much we're actually choosing to suffer. Like we make that choice again and again, you know, because it's familiar. It's familiar. It's home for us. We've been suffering for so long. It's kind of comforting to be with that familiar suffering. You know, it's very scary to consider letting go, to consider moving into the unknown, which is what we're doing every time we meditate, every time we're willing to stay present and allow nature to flow. We're changing. Our situation's changing. The paradigms are shifting. There's no solid ground there, and you know that. So it's this process. But, you know, where we tend to get snagged up, caught up, is where we find ourselves holding to suffering because we know it. It's familiar. It's safe in some strange way. It's not really safe, of course. And we can consider, you know, that whatever it is I'm holding on to, we can just, you know, consider how long is it going to last, whatever it is. Whatever it is we want to keep and hold and grasp, how long is it actually going to last? And we can just ask ourselves that question, and we'll notice that the answers inevitably, well, not forever, not forever. And even coming to the sense of self, we know it's not going to last forever. We know it's finite. We're mortal. We have to lose everything at some point. The great invitation in this sutta and in almost, you know, so many of the Buddha's teachings, the great invitation is, can we let go now? Can we be free now? Can we recognize that for things to cease is actually, as the Buddha said, the greatest happiness for us? Can we recognize that? Everything in the world tells us something different. Everything in the world is telling us that we don't want to die. We want to hold on. We want to live, you know, as long as we can. My life, you know, so precious. But the Buddha was telling us that to actually pass away, to actually cease, for things to come to an end, this is the greatest happiness. Just to take that on board, just to consider that. Interesting, you know. Like I've said before, you know, when new life comes, babies are born, we celebrate, you know, we're very happy and we congratulate people and we truly have this sense of delight. If we're really looking clearly, it's like this is the beginning of a long and difficult journey for somebody. Not to be a doom and gloom, you know, but it's the truth, you know. That is the truth. This is the beginning of a very difficult process. If we remember our childhood, if we're willing to kind of go back there and just remember, allow ourselves to remember. And in fact, when we meditate, of course, we have the chance to recollect, because naturally the memories will come up for us. They're all in here. They're all in here. This is the repository, this body, you know, it's all here. Everything that's happened to us this lifetime, and maybe even, who knows, you know, I would say many, many lifetimes, we have karma. There's a resultant karma that's brought us here. So, you know, if we can cast our minds back, when it happens for us in our meditation, that we remember aspects of childhood, for most people, it's very, very disturbing and upsetting. Not because we've been abused necessarily, although some people have. Some people have very clearly had a very difficult time. But even people with the best of parents, the most fortunate circumstances, every single one of us will have had some very painful experiences. Just the time when the baby's crying and nobody's there to pick it up, pick her up, pick him up. Happens with the best intentions in the world. We cannot totally save each other from trauma and distress. It just doesn't happen. And so, you know, to really wake up to our predicament is to suffer, is to feel suffering, is to feel that shake, that quake. And the interesting thing is that if we acknowledge that and open to that, we can really, our attitude towards suffering can really change completely, can't it? So it's like, actually, when I'm feeling distress, quivering and quaking and fear and anger and upset and grief and so on and so on, when I'm feeling these things, it's actually like, of course, this is what it is to be human. And the only problem with all of this is that I make it mine, is that I'm holding on to it, is that I've actually got so used to it, this burden that I'm carrying of dukkha, of suffering, of dis-ease. I've got so used to it that it feels kind of familiar. So it's like having a really heavy backpack, you know, walking around with it the whole time, full of library books or something, full of bricks, heavy weight, a heavy burden. But it feels like home, you know, to take that off and feel the incredible lightness of the way it really is for us right now. Like, you know, it's fearful. It's really fearful. So the truth is that when we feel fear, when we feel anxiety, when we feel deeply ill at ease, we're coming very close to freedom. That's freedom. All we have to do is just stay steady. And, you know, paying attention, being present to a body that's quivering and quaking, a heart that's shaking, a mind that's going crazy with distress and anxiety and fear. All sorts of thoughts will come and kind of try and grab us, you know. To be able to simply stay steady with all of that is all we have to do. Just breathe. Exactly the meditation I was guiding earlier, just to be here. Just be here. Just feel this body. Breathe deep, you know. Keep coming back again and again, just to this simple presence now, here. And that sense of me and mine, that sense of ownership falls away, just falls away. Why does it fall away? Because it's an illusion, because it's a confusion, because it's born of ignorance. It's a kind of craziness to make nature mine, any little piece of it. And because it's an illusion, because it's not real, it's not true, it will fall away. And then the lightness can start to manifest for us, and peace can start to grow. And honestly, it's very funny to me, but I know it to be true, that peace can feel very uncomfortable for us. Amazingly. Suffering feels just fine. You know, it's tough, but it's familiar, it's home. To move away from suffering and to move towards peace can feel extremely destabilizing, extremely scary. Wonderful if we start to feel that way. If we can start to feel that way, knowing that this is progress, we're moving in the right direction, and to have that faith, have that trust, have the confidence to take the next step into the unknown, you know, and the next one. And all the time we're kind of deconditioning, we're losing our sense of who we are. It's all illusion, but we kind of hold rather tenaciously to these things, to this sense of being somebody. Slowly allow that to fall away and be like an innocent child, you know. We start to open our eyes and we start to look around us, and we don't actually know anything. We recognize that we don't really know anything. And I think, you know, I notice that wise older people will often say this: what have I learned in all my years, all my training and my education and all my life experience? What have I learned? That I don't know anything at all. And when people say that, I think, oh, that's so inspiring, because that's where we want to come to, you know. Ideally, you know, if we hold on to the idea that we know stuff, that we're an expert about anything at all, we have any clue what's going on right now, just because we've had past experience that might be a little bit similar, and so forth, then we're just closing down reality. It's like coming into a little box again, coming into a cage, back in prison. We're slaves again. As soon as we feel we've got a handle on this, we know what's what. We haven't got a clue. Opening again and again, and just that willingness to step into the unknown. And it's a bit like being on a cliff edge. First of all, we need to recognize that we're on a cliff edge. And that's a revelation. I thought I was on solid ground. I thought I was immortal in some way. I thought I knew what was what. I thought I was in control here. We start to meditate and we realize, don't we? Oh my goodness, you know, what am I dealing with here? What am I dealing with? I'm so out of control. It's unbelievable. I have no agency here. Not really. Not when I come home to this mind and body. No, it's karma unfolding. It's past history manifesting and finding its peace if we allow it to. So all that sense of agency, all that sense of knowing, all that sense of solid ground beneath our feet starts to fall away, doesn't it? Start to feel like, actually, we're on quite shaky ground here. And for me, the sense is we're on the edge of a cliff. We're on the edge of a cliff individually, we're on the edge of a cliff collectively. That's how it is. So we start to come to terms with that. It's scary. It's a long way down there, and we're very close to the edge, and it's a bit crumbly as well. It's being eroded, constantly being eroded. You know, this is the nature. This is the nature of nature. This is the way it is. And then, if we're really fortunate, we'll have the strength and the willingness and the goodness and the merit behind us and the wisdom and the clear seeing that we can actually just say, to heck with this, and just jump, let go completely, free fall, free fall. That's the truth of our existence. That's the truth. That's the way it is. We're all in free fall. We're falling. Can we be with that? Can we be with that? What I'm describing in that image is the sense of unknowing, you know, the open, receptive presence here and now. Can we simply allow that to be what it is? It is the reality. What we're spending our time doing is clutching at straws. We're clutching, you know, at figments of our imagination, and trying to make them real, trying to make the sense of self real for ourselves. We have to work so hard to create that every moment. It's a huge effort. It's a great burden for us. It's a great source of exhaustion, a source of suffering, to be constantly creating something out of nothing. So the whole practice is an invitation for us to allow all of that to fall away, allow all of the solidity, the structure, the sense of knowing, the sense of self, all the grasping and trying to hold on to, just letting it go, and free fall, free fall. And if we can live in that place, if we can cultivate slowly but surely, get used to the unknown, that we're living in the unknown, that everything is uncertain, that there is no future, there's only this moment, and how to keep developing our awareness, our presence in this moment. If we can do that, get used to being in free fall, then we become part of nature. We're part of nature. And then we start to recognize the amazing paradox that even as we let go of all our safety, all our sense of safety, security, surety, certainty, nature becomes our great refuge. This is Dhamma. You know, this is the refuge of Dhamma. We're completely held in nature. We're part of nature. And if we can just know that and just live that and be that, whatever we need to do in this realm, whatever we have in the way of responsibilities, in the way of work, in the way of relationships, all of that continues to manifest just beautifully, beautifully, because we're not holding to any of it. We're simply here. We're coming from this place of strength, this place of emptiness, this place of wisdom, this very intimate, engaged, alert, aware relationship to what is. And then we can be really effective. Like, we can really serve the world. We can really make a gift of this life for the benefit of all beings. And we don't have to even think about how to do that. We don't have to figure out, how am I going to make the best use of my time? It happens naturally. When we're part of nature, we flow with nature, just like everything around us is teaching us all the time, just flowing, being with. As human beings, we have an enormous potential for the good. You know, we have a lot of good karma. We have a lot of virtue to have a human life. And we can allow that to manifest, you know. It's almost like things can really move and good things can happen, and the best right action can manifest when we get out of the way. We're letting go. We're letting go. Even as we act, even as we manifest, we're letting go. Again and again, coming back to the body, coming back to the breath, allowing things to fall away again and again. It's amazing. It's amazing how, you know, we're not driving the car. Wow. You know, we can really realize that. I don't have to make things happen. I can totally relax. I can be here. I don't have to do anything else. And everything good comes from that place. And interestingly, we may find ourselves doing much, much more than we did before. Much, much less exhaustion. No sense of effort required. No sense of getting tired, getting drained, you know? Inexhaustible energy. Why? Because we're right here. We're resourcing ourselves even as we manifest, even as we act and speak and do. We're resourcing ourselves every moment. There's inexhaustible energy to be had if we just become part of nature, you know, flow. So I think I've said enough now. I could go on, but I think it's better not to. So I'll finish here. Amen.
Handamayandama Kachaya Sadhu Karanda Dhamase Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu.
So we do have a little bit of time, and so I'd like to open up for any comments, reflections, anything you'd like to share, or any questions. Please feel free to speak. We've just lost everybody. I think it must be a Wi-Fi thing. Yeah. Yeah, you know. Anybody in the room want to come in, feel free. Yeah, Scott.
I had an experience like what you're talking about. I was, a lot of anxiety, say 10 years ago, and I would do exactly what you were saying. I would just meditate on it and watch the physical symptoms of it kind of arise and pass away.
Yeah.
And then one day, after I've been doing that for a long time, I was just walking down the street. I felt a little pit of anxiety in my stomach. And all of a sudden, I had this flash of insight that it wasn't me. Like I felt like a real insight, not just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it just fell away like that.
Yeah.
And hardly has come back since then.
That's really awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because, isn't it the case that often we kind of do all the groundwork and we're just diligently, doing a daily practice, making time, sitting, not much going on, not much happening. And then every now and then something like that happens. And it's like, yeah. And just the sense of all the striving, all the effort, all the understanding that's come about has allowed this moment to happen. Boom. And these kind of experiences, what's really beautiful for me about them is that you get these shifts and that's it. It's like you don't go back. Something's finished, something's seen, something's understood. And there's a kind of landing in that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Isn't that inspiring? So inspiring. We can help each other a lot with this kind of sharing. No self. Yeah. No, still gone. Anybody else like to come in? We've got 10 minutes or so.
Hi, Aya.
Hello. Come on, feel free to speak, Jamika. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether you could hear me. My question regarding excitement. When you, what I feel when you get excited, you lose your sati. And then even like for wholesome things, we can get excited, like, going to a retreat, meditation retreat, or even walking in the nature or something like that, you can get really excited. How do you deal with those situations?
Thank you, Damika. What was really interesting for me looking at this sutta today and looking at this Pali word for anxiety that was translated as anxiety, paritasati, was that it also means excitement. And I just find that so interesting because for me, it's like same feelings, quite possibly, same kind of tightening or shake or butterflies in the stomach or whatever it is for you, can be perceived as anxiety if there's a kind of negative sense to it, maybe a tinge of aversion towards it, not liking, not wanting, or it can be perceived as thrill and excitement if there's a kind of leaning towards. And my sense is that quite possibly the feeling is the same, but the perception varies. Just a possibility. It may be that for all of you, these things feel very different. I have no idea. But I could recognize in myself that it's the same kind of a feeling, whether I'm thrilled or horrified, whether I'm afraid or I'm excited. It's the same kind of feeling. And so I would say the same kind of practice is required, actually, for any kind of feeling, any kind of emotion that comes up for us. First of all, let it be welcome. The tendency to want to push away can be as prevalent as the tendency to want to grasp. And we just need to be very alert and catch that movement. And again, it's like whether we're pushing away or grasping, it's the same kind of thing. It's just two sides of the same coin, isn't it? So noticing if there's any push or pull around the feeling as it arises can be really helpful for us to work with any kind of emotion at any time, in any situation, whatever we're doing. Just to feel, we get to notice in the body what it's like when we're not totally relaxed. So through meditation, we get to recognize relaxation. For some of us, like for the first time, we get to know what it feels like to be even a little bit peaceful, a little bit relaxed in the body. And as we develop our meditation practice, this awareness kind of lasts. It can go through the day. It can have a kind of continuity. And then as soon as something happens that brings up tension in any way that isn't completely peaceful and relaxed, we notice. We notice straight away. And we can call it things, the sense of what is it comes quite a bit later in a way. It's like how sometimes we find it quite difficult to say what I'm actually feeling. I don't really know how I feel. It's often this sense, isn't it? I don't really know. I feel something. I'm not quite sure what it is. It may be a sense of something pleasant or something unpleasant, or it may not even be that defined, maybe quite neutral. So with emotion, what we can do, Damika, is notice straight away start to notice when we're not relaxed anymore, something's happening, something's moving. Emotion is motion, it's moving, something's moving through. And how does that feel? And coming back to the feeling, we can see then, almost before it happens, the sense of perception coming in and giving it a name, giving it a quality, making it good or bad, and above all, making it mine. Making it mine is to suffer, to simply be aware of something's moving here in the mind body. That is very clean and clear. And then we don't have to be impacted, one way or the other. We don't have to follow grasping for the pleasant, and we don't have to resist reality by pushing it away with aversion. So I would say, Damika, thank you for the question. how to work with excitement, how to work with anxiety, how to work with anything moving at all. It's the same practice of really grounding our awareness in the body and noticing as soon as we start to lose our peace, lose our relaxation. How does that sit with you?
Thank you, Aya. Yeah, I can feel that shaky feeling even like whenever I have fear. Same way as you said, as you described, excitement give the same kind of emotion. But in my mind, I think that's a good emotion, so I didn't work with that. But yeah, I'll try. Thank you so much, Aya.
Yeah, thank you for that, Dhammika, because that's really interesting that, yeah, some things we feel like we need to work with them because they're difficult and painful, unpleasant. And things like excitement, joy, happiness, how that manifests in the body. Actually, let's remember that we can work with these things as well. We can just be aware that both negative, difficult, painful emotions and mind states are suffering, but also actually the leaning towards, the relishing, the delighting, the excitement and the thrills of life. Also, if we really pay attention to these more positive movements in the mind and body, they're also a source of suffering. Why? Because they don't last. So if we roll along with excitement and happiness and joy, if we follow them without being aware, without allowing our mindfulness to manifest in those times, then we will be enjoying for a while and then we'll be disappointed when they end. And what we'll find ourselves tending to do is wanting to recreate them, wanting to get those things back. So there's a grasping there and we've missed the chance to let go. But if we allow ourselves to notice both liking and disliking those movements, we can recognize it's like the sixth Zen patriarch said, if we make any distinction, pleasant or unpleasant, if we pick and choose our experiences, then we create heaven and hell right there. So we don't want to create hell, for sure. It's kind of easy to want to come out of the unpleasant, to some extent at least. But we also don't want to create heaven. We don't want to create heaven because heaven's very addictive and it'll grab us and it'll prevent us from seeing clearly, from letting go of the sense of self, from freeing our hearts from the whole roller coaster, all the ups and downs. What we really want to do is to free ourselves completely and, just see every step of the way. Like I was saying, it's like a step into the unknown then, as we let go of everything, every experience. Through paying attention, we let go. It happens. The letting go happens. And then we keep moving into what? Into the unknown, into uncharted territory. And the willingness to do that. This is something really I can only just hugely encourage everybody to be willing to take this route, follow this path, into the unknown, into the open heart, into the childlike wonder, into the presence, allowing nature to unfold in every moment, which is just exactly what it's doing. Be part of that, allow that, let go, in short, of any kind of source of desire, any source of aversion, any confusion in the mind, and simply be with what is. Yatha Bhuta, that which is. We can do that, and this is the journey. So don't be enticed by anything. Don't hold on to anything at all. Let it all go and move forward, and let's see where it takes us. So we're out of time now. Thank you, Monica, so much. And also thank you, Scott, for your beautiful sharing. And thanks everyone for being here. We could maybe just have 1 minute of meditation together to finish the evening. Let's just sit quietly. And I'll ring the gong in just a minute or so.